So when applying for spousal sponsorship application online using the new permanent resident online portal, a lot of you have been experiencing issues with the submit button. It just won't turn green. Just like the back of my hair, it's still gray and it can get very frustrating. So a couple of my subscribers had initially reached out to me and they shared their experience with me that they were not able to submit the application even after finishing all the forms and uploading all the documents. And eventually they were actually able to find a solution to their problem. So they were able to turn their submit button from gray to green and eventually able to submit their application. So they were kind enough to share their experience and their solution with me, and I'm going to share those solutions with you. So in this video, we'll cover 5 most common reasons why the online portal won't let you submit your application, or in some cases even upload a few documents. These are the exact situations that my subscribers have shared with me, and they were able to find a solution for these. So these actually work. So if your issue falls in these categories, then you might actually be able to fix your solution watching this video. Okay, so let's get right into it. Alright, so what you see on the screen is the permanent resident online portal page. I've created a test application page, and these are all your forms. These are all your supporting documents. And if I scroll down, as you can see, the submit button is grayed out. So what I've done is I've intentionally made some mistakes while completing this application so that I could show you the errors that my subscribers encountered and how they fixed it. Okay, so the errors that we are going to take a look at are the actual mistakes from my subscribers, and we are going to try to fix them, and then we are going to try to turn this submit button green. Alright, so before we begin, I want to point your attention to these instructions here. So it says to enable the submit your application button, you must complete all mandatory forms, include proof you paid your fees, and complete the consent and declaration. So what we are going to do is we are going to correct the mistakes one by one, make sure we adhere to these instructions and complete all these line items, and then see if we can turn this button green. Alright, so let's begin. So number one issue is the mandatory digital forms. So when you're applying for permanent residence of Canada, there's 4 forms that are mandatory for every program. Doesn't matter whether it's a sponsorship or an individual program. And these forms are 0008, which is the generic application for Canada, 5669, which is Schedule A, 5406, which is the additional family information, and 5562, which is the supplemental travel history. Alright. So if I take you back to the online portal, under the forms section, you're going to see these forms. So as you see, the first form is IMM 0008, generic application for Canada, and the keyword mandatory is written next to it. Alright. Similarly, if I scroll down, I see form 5406 right here, the additional family information. It's also mandatory for all programs. The form 5562, the supplementary information, your travels, is also mandatory for all programs. And finally, form 5669, Schedule A, also mandatory for all programs. So these are the 4 digital forms which are mandatory for all programs. So basically the submit button is also connected to the logic of completion of these 4 forms. So if you've completed everything else, but if you've missed out on one or more of these 4 forms, then the submit button will not be enabled. Okay. So in order to enable the submit button, you will have to fill these 4 forms out. Alright. Now, for 0008, 5406 and 5669, there's no question, you have to complete them. But where the confusion happens is this form 5562, supplementary information. Now this 5562 is a travel history form, which is a country specific form. Alright. So you can find whether you require this form or not on this page, the application kit page, and I'm going to link this page in the description below. So once you enter your sponsorship application type here, and then you select the country of the principal applicant and click on get checklist and forms, you are going to get the entire application packet that is required to be submitted. So under the country specific forms, you are going to see this form 5562 if it applies to your country. So if you're a principal applicant from India, this form is going to apply to you. And this form is going to apply to a lot of countries, but there are some countries for which this form is not going to apply. So let me show you that real quick. So if I select the sponsorship application here, this remains the same, but instead of India, let's say I select Jamaica. All right, and I'm going to select Jamaica here again. And then if I click on get checklist and forms, as you can see, the entire application packet shows up, but the 5562 doesn't show up here. Alright. Similarly, if you're a US citizen, this form 5562 is not going to show up here because it's not required for US. So that is where the confusion happens, that people who are from countries where this 5562 or travel history is not required don't really feel the need to submit this form, and they're right to do that. But unfortunately, the online portal is structured in such a way that this form 5562 is listed as mandatory. And if it's mandatory, it has logic tied to the submit button, so you will have to fill this out. So my suggestion would be complete 5562 even if it doesn't apply to your country. And this was the exact issue faced by several of my subscribers. They had completed all the forms, they've uploaded every document, everything else is correct, but they could not submit their application. It was grayed out, the button was grayed out. But as soon as they filled 5562, the submit button was enabled, all right? So what I suggest you can do is, if this form applies to you, let's say you're an applicant from India, then you will have to fill this out in its entirety, completely and correctly, no question about that. But if this form doesn't apply to you, I'm going to still suggest that click on edit or start, go to this form and just type in the family name and given name, so basically last name and first name. And if you've traveled, then provide details about your travel, or you can even choose to write not applicable because it's not in country specific requirements. Or you can fill this form completely for you and your family members, and then you can write a small Word document, write a note in a small Word document that says, I filled out 5562, but it's not really required for my country, or I did not fill out 5562 because it's not required for my country, so I just wrote not applicable here. But you should still type in your name here and at least provide some information, at least write not applicable if this form doesn't apply to your country, and then just click on save and continue. That way you will at least complete this form, and then once you finish all the sections and return to your application, this form should show up as ready to submit, as it shows right here. So as it says, ready to submit, and then there's a good chance that your submit button is going to turn green, all right? So that is one of the biggest issues why the submit button is grayed out. People don't fill out 5562. So just to recap, if 5562 is a requirement, if it's listed in your country specific requirements, fill it out completely and correctly, no questions about that. But if it doesn't apply to your country, fill it out still, okay? It's going to help. All right, so let's move on to the next section of the errors with these digital forms. So I'm going to take the example of this form 5669 that you see on the screen here, Schedule A. As you can see, it's mandatory. And one of my subscribers had an issue with this form. So let's explore that and see how they fixed it, all right? So you can click on edit, and there are multiple sections that you have to fill out. So I'm not going to be discussing how to fill these sections out. If you are looking for instructions on this form, then check out this video that should be showing up on the cards here and link below. I have instructions on how to fill that form out, all right? So let's get to the exact section where my subscriber had an issue. So they had an issue on section D, from what I remember, which was personal history. So I'm going to get straight to that. So this is the personal history section, and I've pretty much populated it the way they populated it, okay? So number one thing you have to make sure is these dates are in the correct format, all right? If these dates are not listed correctly, you can get an issue, a technical error. And then the exact issue that the subscriber had was in the city and country field. So this is their personal history. As you can see, all their fields are correctly filled out, and there's no red boxes, because if you make a mistake here, this form is going to give you a red box and show you the length of characters. So this is what I'm talking about. So if I type some gibberish here and click outside, it's going to tell me that the length is clearly exceeding the maximum amount of characters allowed. And if I scroll down, the save and continue is going to be disabled. So let me remove that real quick. So technically the form looks good because there's no red boxes. But if I try to click save and continue, as you can see, there was a technical error when handling your request. This was the exact error that they got, all right? So it was a little difficult to understand what was wrong here because there was no errors being highlighted in the portal. So what we tried was, in this field, as you can see, this is a pretty long name for city, state and country, okay? They're asking for city and country, and they have written Andhra Pradesh here, which is the state, but that should be fine because they've also written city, state and country here. But what we tried was, we removed this Andhra Pradesh and simply left it with the city and country just as an experiment. And if we scroll down and if I click on save and continue, it accepts it, all right? So there's no really hard set way to know how many characters it's going to allow. But from what I calculated, less than 30 or around 25 to 30 characters are allowed, okay? If your city and country field, I would say if it exceeds 30 characters, then there is a good chance that you will get the same kind of technical error, all right? So let's say I just type some gibberish here again, and if I try to click save and continue, it gives me the same error, all right? But if I remove this gibberish, let's say I remove this, and let's say I just add the abbreviation of the state here, Andhra Pradesh, but AP, and then if I click save and continue, it still accepts, all right? So what I'm going to suggest is, whenever you have names, not just the names of city and country, but also names of institutions or your employers, try to make sure that those names are not too long. Try to stay within the 20-25 character limit and see if it works. Clearly, in this case, it worked for my subscriber. And do these checks for all the other digital forms. So 0008, 5406, 5562 and 5669. Do the same kind of checks for all the forms. And you will have to do a little bit of trial and error to see what length works for you. But this is a very common issue that the error is not highlighted, but when you click on save and continue, you get a technical error. And that is mostly because of the long character length of the city and country field, all right? And the same can happen in the company section also. So let's say this is the name of company, and if I try to put such a long company name, it already gives me an error. It says it's more than 27 characters, so it's not allowed. So be mindful of these errors, try to keep them short, all right? And there's a good chance that you will be allowed to save and continue. So if I come down here, and if I click on save and continue, this section is now complete. So that is exactly how my subscriber was able to complete this form Schedule A and fix this error. Everything else in their application was correct. So after fixing this, they were actually able to submit their application. All right. So speaking of 5669, this Schedule A form, once you complete everything, there is another section that a lot of people miss out on. So let me quickly save and continue and complete all this. If you scroll down within Schedule A, there is also a name section. All right, so this is where the principal applicant has to type their full name. I'm just going to type a random name. I'm just going to type my name here. So I type my first name, my last name. Okay, this is just for example. All right, I did not type my name. I was the sponsor. This is where you'll type the principal applicant's full name. All right, and that is when you can click on complete and return to application. So if you haven't typed this name here, this complete and return to application section is going to be grayed out. All right. So if you want to turn this green and ultimately your submit button green, make sure that the length is correct and the declaration section within Schedule A, this form, is completed. All right. So I'm just going to type my name again and I'm going to click on complete and return to application. All right. So keep this thing in mind. There is a consent section within 5669 where you also have to type the principal applicant's name. Now let's look at the next error, which is also related to consent. So once you've completed all your forms, if you scroll down all the way, you will have a consent section right here. So this is a general consent given by the principal applicant for their entire application. All right, so don't miss this section out. As you can see, this is also a requirement, completed the consent and declaration. So this consent and declaration applies to both 5669, which we just did, and this particular section. So you're going to click here and you're going to select these radio buttons, and then you are going to type the full name here. Okay, so this is the principal applicant's full name. So I've typed my wife's name here. And then you will be able to complete and return to application. All right. Then finally, if you scroll down even further, there is a section, as you may have already guessed, proof of payment. So if you don't upload your payment receipt, the submit button is still going to be grayed out. All right. So let me quickly upload my payment receipt here. I'm going to click on upload. Let me just find any random document and I'm going to upload it here. And now the payment section is complete. And because all the other things in my application are complete, every document is uploaded, all the digital forms are complete, the consent is given. If I scroll down, the submit button is now greened out. All right. So this is how you can kind of experiment and investigate and troubleshoot why you are getting errors within these digital forms. And once you're done with the digital forms, check for the consent. Make sure your payment is uploaded. All right, so now let's look at a different kind of error which users experience while trying to upload documents. So this is not really related to the submit button, but the upload process. Okay, so when you try to upload a document, the online portal won't let you. Okay, so let's try to troubleshoot that. So first of all, what you see on the screen here are the instructions under the supporting documents section for document labeling and what kind of size and type of document are allowed. There's a whole bunch of instructions here on how to label your documents, what file types are accepted, and what should be the size of the documents. So if you follow these instructions, you will already eliminate the chances of most of the errors. And then once your documents are ready and they adhere to these instructions, then you can come down here and you can select your categories and simply start uploading documents like this. So after reading these instructions, if you're still struggling with the supporting documents section and you're confused about how to label them and under what category to upload your documents, then I have a dedicated video about supporting documents which should be showing up on the cards here, and it's linked in the description below. I basically take you through all the supporting documents that I submitted for sponsoring my wife. I actually also show you most of those documents. I also discuss how I procured them and how I labeled them and under what category I uploaded each one of them. Alright, so it's going to be a very informative video. I highly recommend that you check that video out. So one of my subscribers was trying to upload a family reference letter under the other category as proof of relationship, but the online portal did not allow her to upload that. It kept giving her a technical error. Okay, so I labeled my document exactly the way she had labeled it so that I could show you what the issue was. So this is the document. This is the way I've labeled it. Last name, first name. I used my wife's name because I didn't want to use the subscriber's name. Proof of relationship, reference letter, spousal sponsorship application, submission for year 2022. All right. I think you probably at this point already know what the error is. But the way I would check for accuracy would be to first see the size of the document. So it's 1.9 megabytes. So it's less than the 4 megabyte limit. So that's good. Then it's a PDF document. So it falls within the acceptable file types. So PDF and size, both criteria are met. So then what could be the issue? So let me try to upload and let me show you what the issue is. So I click on upload, and if I select that document and I click on open, as you can see, there was a technical error when handling your request. It doesn't really tell you what the error was. I'm going to tell you what the error was, and my subscriber already figured it out by herself and she shared this with me. The name was too long. All right. So there's no specific length mentioned here in the instructions about how long your document names can be, but clearly this is a good sign because let's fix the name and try to upload it again. So instead of using such a large name, just use a simple name. Keep it simple. Last name, first name, type of document, and if there's more than one type, then number of document. Keep it simple. So I'm simply going to remove this part and I'm going to leave it at last name, first name, proof of relationship, and reference letter. And I'm going to press enter. And I'm going to try to upload this under the other category once again. All right. And it should go through. As you can see, your document was successfully uploaded. So if you're having a similar issue, try to check for unnecessary special characters in your document. So if you've used too many hyphens or too many slashes, forward slash, backward slash, quotes, parentheses, and it won't let you upload, try to remove them and label the document simply. I think hyphens are allowed as mentioned in the instructions here, but don't use too many characters, okay? It might go wonky on you, all right? So that's one way to troubleshoot. First check the size, then check the type, and then finally check the length of the name. So let's look at the next one. All right, so finally there's this issue of the size of the document. So let me give you an example. So I'm going to try to upload one document under the other category. I'm going to click on upload. And let me select that document right here. So as you can see, this document is 8.4 megabytes. All right. So if I try to upload this, it's going to give me an error. File size exceeds the maximum of 4 megabytes. Maximum value exceeded. So it's not going to allow you to upload this. All right. So in this case, you will actually have to compress this document, and you will have to do this for both your photos or your PDF documents. It's fairly simple. You just go to Google, type compress, and then type of the document. So if it's a PDF, you type compress PDF. If it's a JPEG or a PNG, which means a photo, then you type compress JPEG or PNG, and then it's going to give you a bunch of free links. You will simply upload your documents. It's going to compress them. You may have to repeat compression a few times, and then once it is brought back to the right size, which means less than or equal to 4 megabytes, then you download it from there and then you try uploading again and it's going to work. Okay. So once you've uploaded all your documents correctly, all your digital forms are correctly filled out and everything shows ready to submit, you've given your consent, you've uploaded your payment receipt, then if you scroll down, you're going to see your submit your application button green. I'm obviously not going to submit because I've already done that. This is just a test application page. But these are just a few ways you can do trial and error to fix technical issues at your own end. All right. So hopefully one of the issues we discussed was yours. So try fixing it and see if the submit button turns green. If it still won't turn green and you've tried everything that we discussed, then as a last resort, what I'm going to suggest is, and this has worked for some people, start a fresh brand new application page. Okay. So go back to the home page and click on start new application. Fill out all the forms again, the digital forms in the portal, upload all the PDF forms, upload all your supporting documents again, give your consent, upload the proof of payment receipt, and see if the online portal allows you to submit this fresh application page. And if after trying all of that, you still can't submit your application, then reach out to IRCC and let them know that there's a technical issue that you're experiencing with the portal. and see what they say. I know it's hard to get in touch with them, but it's worth a shot. But if after trying all of that, you still can't submit your application, then there's a good chance that there's just a bug in the online portal. And just like with any new pilot program, this online portal is also fairly new and bugs are to be expected. So reach out to IRCC and see if they can help navigate a solution for you. I'm not saying it's gonna work 100% of the time. It's hard to get in touch with IRCC, but it's worth a shot. Okay, but if this is a time sensitive issue for you, which I'm guessing would be the case for most of you, you don't want to wait too much for them to respond, even if you submit a web form. So the best option is to just go with the paper-based route. You've already uploaded all your documents, which means you've already collected all your supporting documents. You've filled out most of the PDF forms. You will just have to fill out these digital forms that you filled out in the online portal as PDF forms for your paper-based application. Okay, so collect your application packet, all your documents and forms, and simply mail in your application packet. Go with the traditional paper-based route as a last resort. It's still active, it's tried and tested, it stood the test of time, and it's still being accepted. Okay, the online portal is actually the new pilot program that's still in the works and bugs are still being fixed, but the paper-based application is active. So if this doesn't work for you, don't worry, you can still use the paper-based route, alright? So before submitting your application, you want to be sure you haven't missed anything. So here's a video about list of spousal sponsorship forms that you'll need. Here's a video where I discuss all the supporting documents that I submitted for my wife. And here's my current timeline. This is Yash from Hit Submit in Canada. I'll see you in the next one. Good night.